I have to say that Putin is right, and I'm not one of the people that will admit that freely. So, honestly, I'm not exactly a fan of Putin all the way, but for the most part, he's absolutely correct about what he's saying about the West. And what he's saying about the West is that no matter who is president, the same type of people are controlling things from behind the scenes. That's why policies never really change. Sometimes we nickname that the deep state, but it's not necessarily the alphabet agencies. It could be the money people. And actually, it's highly confusing for Russia to try to figure out what the United States policy really is in the future. Now, I saw some remarks in various forums because, every time the United States bombs Syria or something, Russia backs down or calling Putin a pussy or something. I'm saying, no, 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 he's not a pussy. But there's going to be a time when he's going to find that he's going to tolerate only so much, but he's looking for that window of opportunity. And when I say that window of opportunity is when there's, if there's a major economic collapse in the West, like in other words, the real estate prices start falling and the markets start falling, the real estate has been in a massive bubble. The market prices, the equities have been in a massive bubble. They're fueled by debt. It's probably going to come to a head at one point in time. Putin's not a wimp. No way in hell. Now, I do know the guy is not that tall, and I'm not going to knock the guy for that, but I think, I don't know what the deal is, why he's got to portray himself as taller, but that could be part of, just the image that's got to go along with Russia, itself. Maybe it's not him per se, But he's short in stature, but he's a powerhouse. That's all I got to tell you. The guy is not stupid, and he's very disciplined. I know there's not a lot of freedom in Russia, but in some ways, well, there's more freedom in the United States. There's no doubt about that. I'm not going to delude myself that there isn't more freedom in the United States. But as far as who's calling the policies in the United States for real, it's pretty much a dictatorship behind the scenes, although it's much more confusing the way policy is set in the United States than the way it is set in Russia. Now, with Trump, when he came on the scene, I had a big suspicion that he was playing the crowd. I don't think the guy was totally illegit, and I don't think the guy is all bad. I think he's got a patriotic streak in him, but he's a super salesman. He's been in the media. He's been in, what do you call it, even on the WWF, and, what's that other show, The Apprentice? He's a guy that knows how to play the crowd. He knows how to throw the sales pitch out there. Now, what I didn't know till later on is that Cambridge Analytica basically told him how to conduct his campaign. So, that's confirmation of my worst fears that this guy was kind of telling you a lot of stuff you wanted to hear. Now, I don't think this guy's all illegit. I don't think he is. I think it's like when he got into office, he kind of found out that, he really can't change stuff as much as he wants to. Honestly, I'm going to tell you, I never was a fan of Bill Clinton. Never, okay? But I'm going to tell you that Bill Clinton himself, there was things where even him, he had his arm twisted on a lot of different things, like with bombing Bosnia, way back when he was in office. I don't think Trump wants to freaking do all this stuff against Syria. Now, I know the situation in Syria is a little more complicated because it's not just Syria. There's Iranians in Syria, and a lot of times the bombing is going against the Iranians, and the Iranians are a threat to Israel, which, Syria is right next to Israel, crying out loud, right, basically. So, it's not that simple. I know what both sides are saying, but honestly, he doesn't have the same political clout as Vladimir Putin. No way. That's just the reality of it. Vladimir Putin recognizes that. Now, if you really came down to it and say Trump wanted to really buck the system, This is something I always thought, too. The deep state, quote unquote, would nuke a city to get rid of Trump. They would. They would. They'd go to any length. You know, nothing would surprise me. What they'd go, there's absolutely no limit on anything. Nothing would surprise me. So, there's only so much this guy can do, no matter how legit he is or what. Putin is right. Policy does not change in the United States with presidents because presidents don't really control policy. I mean, as bad as I didn't like Obama or as bad as I didn't like Bill Clinton, there was a couple things they probably wanted to do that were good and they couldn't do them. Now, I also want to discuss something else. You know, we hear a lot of stuff about, the Russians' technological advances, and we also hear things about the American technological advances. For the most part, the American public doesn't know anything that is really going on in the U.S. military. I heard many years ago that, intercontinental ballistic missiles are now obsolete. We could shoot them down. I heard this. I mean, I don't know how good it is or what, but from where I heard it from was supposed to be good information, that we can knock out intercontinental ballistic missiles from, the Strategic Defense Initiative that used to call Stars Wars. That's actually, I think, in place now, where we can knock out missiles when they're first being fired right from Russia itself. Now, to be quite honest, I don't think anybody really knows how all this is going to play out. Everybody thinks they got the upper edge, and the reality is going to come out the way ever it's going to come out. Like here, I'm showing a sophisticated drone. That's another freaking thing, because I think drones are going to be another thing that are going to be coming into play a lot too. What I think, though, is what they got planned, if World War III comes about, is that it's going to knock out most of the conventional forces, and the USA probably will win World War III. But most of the conventional forces will be knocked out. The United States will be knocked out pretty much. Russia will be knocked out pretty much too. And everybody, all developed nations will be knocked out. And then they're going to bring about a new world order with what's left over. In other words, they'll get rid of the concept of the nation state. That's what I think is planned. I don't think Putin is actually part of that plan. I don't know, but I wouldn't know for 100% sure. But I could also tell you this. I knew back, way back when I was in, this is many years ago, back in the 80s and stuff, that they always considered, I know a lot of times you hear, current talk about the vulnerability of our aircraft carrier fleet and all that. Even way back in the 1980s, they said that the aircraft carrier fleet was considered written off almost immediately in the first stages of an all-out confrontation with Russia. They knew this way back when. Actually, there's been a couple times in the past, I think it was in 1991, where we almost had a conflict with Russia. There's been a few times we came very close. Just because it doesn't happen doesn't mean it can't happen. People, like, when you had a near miss, doesn't mean it can't happen in the future. The way things are going, actually, right now, they set the the theoretical doomsday clock to 2 minutes before midnight. The only time it's been that close to total destruction was in 1953 when they developed, I think it was the neutron bomb. So right now, they consider, catastrophic worldwide World War III to be looming on the horizon as a dangerous level as it ever has been. The only time that clock has been set to 2 minutes before midnight was back in 1953. And so it's set to 2 minutes before midnight right now. But nobody really wants World War III. The Rothschilds don't want World War III. And that's a word they throw out there all the time because, if you look at the palaces and the homes and things that these people have, they do not want them destroyed. But there's some crazy people out there that probably would do it. You look at somebody like Curtis LeMay, remember him from World War II, and also he was running with Barry Goldwater, I think, as vice president in 1960 or 64 or something. I forgot what year it was. But that guy probably, he would do it. I think actually one of the people that would most likely get us involved in World War III are some of the top military people, not necessarily the top business people. Could you imagine people that have massive holdings in real estate, in high-rise buildings and stuff that would want to get involved in World War III and have their net worth go to zero inside of a minute? No, they don't want to do that. To tell you the truth, it's always been the military people that are most dangerous. And I don't think the civilians really got them on a tight leash. Now here I'm showing a map of the United States economic activities split in half. I like this map because it's pretty interesting that now, actually it's even more acute in Russia than it is here in the United States. It doesn't take that much to knock out most of the economic power of a country just by concentrating on a few regions. Like, of course, the New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, actually New York, Philadelphia corridor, it's probably like freaking 15-20% of it, for crying out loud. Of course, you got Boston, Baltimore, D.C., Miami, Atlanta, Dallas, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Diego, Sacramento area, Seattle, but it doesn't take that much to knock out most of the GDP in the United States and bring us back at least 150 years of technological advantage for the average civilian. And without the average civilian being able to keep the military going, military is going to have major problems. See what I mean? But same thing on the Russian side. Same thing. The actual doctrine of mutually assured destruction is still in place. That's one reason Putin is backing down on a lot of stuff. Putin doesn't want to see all this fancy architecture disappear in the Kremlin, and a lot of the other things that are in Russia that have been withstood the test of time for many centuries. All this stuff would be gone. It's something you're not going to replace. So sometimes I hear these remarks that Putin is backing down and he's a pussy or something. No, he's not a pussy. No. He's a smart man. He doesn't realize what the repercussions of what it's going to do if he, started going toe-to-toe with the United States and let the war escalate. But there's going to be a time when it's going to happen. But I think what it's going to happen is, first, there's going to be a major economic collapse. If there's no major economic collapse, it ain't going to happen. But I think there is going to be a major economic collapse in basically, let's say, the equities. They've been riding on a high. They've been on the all-time longest bull run that we've ever had in the United States stock market. It's the longest bull run we've ever had. The PE ratios, the price-earnings ratios are lousy. And, they're fueled by debt. The equities are fueled by debt, borrowing. And then we also got another big real estate bubble going on, which is actually more fueled by big money that's investing in real estate rather than individuals. So it'll be the next subprime bubble that's going to bust again, which will bring down, because real estate is basically half the economy. You add up all the corollary industries. That's another thing. I'm not saying that Russia is very vulnerable too. I mean, Russia basically has one major export, basically oil. 60% of their cash they get brings in cash is from oil. They're basically a commodity-rich country. they don't really have a big, even though I know a lot of manufacturing jobs have been exported from the United States. You know, the United States manufacturing is still way bigger than in Russia, far bigger. And the population in the United States is far bigger too. I mean, Russia's got a vast, expansive territory, but not many people live in that area. That's, you know, when you look at the map, they're mostly concentrated east of the Urals. I'm not trying to say Russia's weak. I'm not trying to put them down, but I'm just telling you that sometimes when you look at that map and you see the size of Russia, especially on a map that is a little bit skewed because it's a flat map. You know, northern countries look a lot bigger than countries near the equator. Um, People have a tendency that Russia is, you know, absolutely, you know, mind-bogglingly powerful. It is very strong, but not as strong as you might think. But the reality of the situation is that, you know, Putin doesn't want a war. But it looks like the policymakers behind the scenes in this country are trying to twist his arm, and eventually something's gonna happen. What I think is gonna happen after that, though, you're not going to see the United States continue on in the same format that it has. I think the United States will break up into areas. I don't know what kind of areas. It might break up into Dixie and Yankeetown and, you know, Republic of Texas and Plain States, Mountain States, and California or something, and I don't know, in the Southwest and New England states, maybe you took maybe 8 to 10 groups or something. But I don't think the United States is going to continue being around like one big cohesive unit as it has been for the last 200 something years. After, you know, the bombs start dropping and all that kind of stuff. It really doesn't take that many bombs to knock things out. I mean, if they just planted a few tsunami bombs, which I know Russia's already done, they got them all set on the East Coast and West Coast of the United States. They could knock out a lot of our GDP infrastructure right there because a lot of it is right there on the coast. You're looking at up here in the Northeast, you got Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C. You know, I mean, sure, it wouldn't get Atlanta or anything like that or Chicago, but, you know, it also, you can really whack a lot of California, too. There's a lot located on the coast. There's nothing you can do to defend against that. Actually, that's one area where the Strategic Defense Initiative is not going to work. Like I said, I heard that ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, are no longer a threat to the United States. Now, I know the Russians came up with some other stuff they call like Satan 2 or something that can go really super fast and invade all this stuff. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure if, you know, what we got. Nobody does have any inkling exactly what we have, but we might have stuff that could probably shoot stuff down from the air. But then, you know, there's been a lot of indications that Russia's got electronic methods to even jam the Aegis system that is used by the aircraft carrier fleets in the Navy to defend themselves against missiles. So, you know, but Putin's not in a hurry to freaking get pushed into a corner and start a bunch of garbage. And Putin's absolutely correct, though. No matter who the president is, like Donald got in there, let's make the assumption everything he said during the campaign trail was legit, even though Cambridge Analytica was telling him what to say. Let's say everything was legit. With the best of his intentions, I don't think he can change much. He's one guy against many. You know, he's basically screwed. So I think they would, you know, if he really wanted, you know, if he got out of line, they'd get rid of him. There's no doubt about it. So who really controls America? It's not Donald Trump. And Putin is telling us that. He's saying that. It's absolutely correct. Now, honestly, you know, I think there's more freedoms going on in the United States than Russia overall. But don't delude yourself to think that this country is on the right path. It's been on the wrong path for a long time. It's probably been on the wrong path since the South lost the war, you know? That's the way I look at it. Now, if Trump was actually making some speech, I was over here with a Confederate flag in the background or a big rebel flag, boy, that would really piss off the ultra-liberal North. It's probably what I would have done, but then I would have alienated probably at least 4/5 of the nation. But, oh well, that's what I would have done. But Putin, he's a hard ass, man. He's not gonna, he's not gonna, he's smart though. He's smart. And some people recently have been giving him a lot of crap. I used to give him crap because people worship this guy, and they worship the ground he walks on. Like, you know, this guy's not a saint. I mean, but you know, I realize he's an intellectual person. He's not, and I realize, you know, people when he talks on these interviews with these correspondents and stuff, man, that is so, you can tell that's all state rehearsed instead of Max. I mean, for crying out loud. These correspondents are probably walking on eggshells when they're ever making any kind of remarks. They got to actually smile, like glowingly smile at Putin like they love him. Unless they're probably going to be shipped off to Siberia or something. I don't know. You don't want to piss this guy off, man. But he's a very smart, reasonable guy. He's got an intellect. He doesn't want his country destroyed. He knows this. He can mess us up, too. But we can mess him up. So he's not backing down because he's scared. He's just smart. But it looks like our people are deliberately trying to antagonize this guy into starting something. I think the end result is that, you know, it's going to knock out most of the conventional forces in the world. And I think the USA side, the deep state, probably has a lot of secret weapons. I think the Russians got a lot of secret weapons too. I don't know who's going to win, but I'm sure the deep state thinks they're going to win. The guys that are in the USA that are really controlling things, I think they think they're going to win. And the ultimate goal is, when you destroy most of the conventional forces, is that you're going to put, it's going to cause whoever's left in this world to be softened up to have just a one world army, which will be controlled by the elite. Which I don't think is going to include, I don't think will not include Putin. I think the real elite in this world that are on the Western side, I mean, Putin's an elitist and he's kind of tied into the Western, he is tied into the Western financial system with his oil trading company in Switzerland, which is registered in Cyprus. And he doesn't want to lose his $50 billion and all this kind of stuff. I know this. And he doesn't want to lose, and he's working with the oligarchs who don't want to lose their money. But the guys that are on the Western side, they just assume get rid of Putin and take over Russia and have it splintered up into different, you know, regions and just take the whole damn 9 yards over. And Putin doesn't want that to happen. So, but nothing bad. If I got this correct, I think I got it correct. Nothing bad is going to happen until after there's a major financial collapse in the West. If everything keeps going smooth and sailing fine, and the markets are staying up, and you know, I mean, the economy's not really that bad right now, but I think it's right on the edge of rolling over and having a major reset. It's been on a high for a very, very long time. And after that happens, you know, that's got to happen first before we get into some kind of major confrontation. So don't worry about a major confrontation coming up right away. Maybe something might happen in Syria. Maybe there'll be a clash between U.S. forces and Russian forces in Syria or something. But there's not going to be World War III right away until there's a major financial collapse in the West across the board. That's and then it might take a few years or a couple of years after that before it actually happens. But Putin is 100% correct that policies in the West do not change with presidents, including Donald Trump, which I got mixed feelings about. I don't think he's all bad. I mean, compared to the guys we had before, he looks really good despite, even though I know he's kind of giving us a sales pitch. He's not all bad. And he's he's a million times better than Hillary Clinton. But, yeah, that's the reality of the situation. Right now, it looks like Vladimir Putin is one of the most stabilizing forces in the world for world peace. I almost hate to admit that, but that's what it is. And this guy, he's got his angles. He wants to get Russia back stronger and stronger. He wants to restore the way the old Soviet Empire was. He's pro-Russia all the way, and he'll keep making moves and to whatever he's got to do to make Russia a more bigger, powerful powerhouse in the world as much as possible. But right now, it's been my opinion now for many years now that the USA and Russia ought to work together on everything. If I was Trump, this guy with Vladimir Putin would be my best buddy. I'd be on the phone with him 5, 6 times a week. I'd be really in tight with this guy because he's going to have to make a strong ally with somebody because he's got a lot of bad people here in the USA that are really running things, which are not the American people. You're going to have to make an ally with somebody. This would be the guy I would, you really can't trust Vlad all the way either, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? He's the least bad option. That's my opinion. And Vlad is 110% right that America is not guided by the president. It's guided by, I guess you can use the word deep state, but it's not just that. It's also the money that's out of Wall Street. And a lot of times it's extremely confusing because people have various angles that they want something out of. They want to get something out of something. The military's got their goals. Business people got their goals. In the lesser level, the politicians got their goals. But money people and the military people might not have the same goals. The biggest problem we got that's danger to world peace is the military people. As much as I don't like the business people in New York, they do not want World War III. They don't want to see, their billions of dollars of real estate holdings go up and get turned into like zero value net worth. Because that's exactly what will happen. The military, who probably are privy to deep underground bases where they'll survive and have all this stuff where they could probably live for umpteen years, they probably don't give a damn because they don't have these billions of dollars of real estate holdings in the nuclear targets. So as much as I don't like the money people, they're not the ones that are actually pushing us into World War III. I think it's the military people. And, I'm not deluding myself that Putin is Santa Claus, but, if I was Trump, he'd be my best option, no doubt about it, over and out. And Putin is absolutely 100% correct in what he observes about what's going on in the United States. Presidents change, but policies don't, because policies aren't made by the president. So we, the people of the United States, don't really have a voice in what's going on. It's just how it is. Over and out.